recording for YouTube. So today we're doing something different. I've been listening to you guys. We are not going to take any breaks. We are going to start the show, and we're going to, of course, we always have to talk about our sponsors. We always have to identify how to get a hold of us. And so that we will do. But today we're going to talk about functional medicine, and we all get to be a part of the class. So for those of you who are watching, oh, look at that. Cheryl Teague says, we love Dr. Grable. So that's wonderful to know. She's also a fan of the show. So here we go. So today I'm going to ask for all of you, because this is the way we're going to do the classroom from this point on. And because we are not going to take the breaks, I still do need to identify the people who believe in the show. And so with that in mind, just know that when we start the show, we will be muted. But that doesn't mean you're exempt from dancing. So fasten your seatbelts, because we're going to learn about a wonderful doctor in the Jacksonville area that is functional, integrative, wonderful, funny. I don't know. I may not. We don't know. Let's see if he's funny or not. We'll all be the judge of that.
You can keep going.
No pressure, Dr. Grable. Okay, fasten your seatbelts. We're going to learn and grow together. Now it's time to dance. Hit it. Here we go.
The Lillian McDermott Show.
We love, we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough, and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be right here, right here. And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for you.
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who've been tuning in to the Lillian McDermott radio show, which is now officially a classroom, well, I am so grateful if you've been tuning in since 2011, or maybe you just started watching yesterday. I am grateful that you have tuned in. But if this is the first time somebody texted you, or you saw that Dr. Grable is on the show today, and all these new people are coming on, well, just know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friends, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. So today, we get to dive and dip our toe. We've heard so many doctors come on, but there's one in the Jacksonville area. And for years, I've been talking about holistic, complementary, integrative, functional medicine, but I could not find a doctor in Jacksonville until I find myself in Orlando in a conference full of these wonderful outside-the-box thinkers, when all of a sudden, the needle in the haystack just popped up and asked a question. And he said, hello, my name is, I kind of missed that. Then he said, and I'm a ACIM doctor in Jacksonville. And I went, did he just say Jacksonville? And then after he asked this wonderful question, very articulate, then he sat down, and I had no idea where he sat down. So I started looking for that shirt, that bright shirt that stood out in the crowd. And right before I left that conference, after a whole day of not being able to find him, we almost ran into each other. Talk about the universe bringing us together. Talk about having this wonderful moment. And now I get to share Dr. Steve Grable, who since 1996 has been board certified, a medicine doctor, and founder of the Complementary Care Center. So he has been someone that I've been talking to since that moment that I met him. And I visited his office. And let me tell you, it's a place where I would go to. And he's going to become my doctor as well. And so the place is called Complementary Care Center, and they are in Jacksonville. So if you are close by, or even if you want to drive to Jacksonville, and it's a few hours worth the drive. And so we're going to talk about him, his practice, and his values, and how to practice this kind of root cause. What is the root cause in your disease? And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am so grateful that Dr. Steve Grable is here to do just that. Welcome, Dr. Grable, to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show.
Thank you.
And so,
well, I want to thank you very much, Lily, for inviting me.
Well, it's more than an invitation. You have partnered up with the show. You believe in what we're doing, and I believe in what you're doing. But share a little bit about your background, your credentials, and a little bit about why you became a doctor.
Well, I was born in Buffalo, New York, and I thought everyone shoveled 4 feet of snow out of their driveway. But I can't remember when I first got interested in medicine. It just seemed like it always just went back to childhood. I just always was going to be a doc. And we moved to Florida, got into medical school. Well, actually, let me backtrack a little bit. So growing up, my mom was into Adele Davis,
okay,
who you may remember. And she and, Jack LaLanne were forerunners in all this.
Mm-hmm.
And so they kind of planted some seeds about natural medicine, that sort of thing. So that was one thing that kind of stuck out. And so we moved to Florida, got into medical school, and was going through the traditional training. And on one of my rotations, I was with an ENT named John Boyles.
Mm-hmm.
And John had an interesting history. He was a conventional ENT doc, and his wife had developed ulcerative colitis, and they wanted to do a full colectomy and just take out her colon, have her, go in a bag the rest of her life.
Wow.
And he said, time out. We're going to check out some things. So he discovered food allergies, food sensitivities, and got her on a rotation diet. And I'll just mention this for the listeners. If you ever have any allergies, sensitivities, if you rotate your foods once every 4 days, which is sometimes a challenge, that can really help to cut down a lot on allergies. So anyway, his wife, her colon cleared up, and she had a nice, healthy colon.
Wow.
And that completely changed his path.
Mm-hmm.
And John got into a type of allergy treatment where you do little injections under the skin.
Mm-hmm.
And he later went on to become the president of the AAEM, or American Academy of Environmental Medicine, which is one of the forerunners in all this. So I really felt privileged to have had that exposure. So I go through medical school, typical residency, and I get into practice. And I did 5 years conventional. I threw drugs at everything, at hospital practice, board certified, all that stuff. And I started to get a little restless, thinking this really wasn't the best way to help people. So the Mandarin School of Chinese Medicine here in town set up a program for physicians, acupuncture treatment program. And they needed 4 docs to make it viable. Well, 3 of us joined, and they said, well, we'll go ahead and do it with 3. Well, the other 2 dropped out. So I wound up being the only one. So again, about God and the universe making that happen. So that was a full 2-year, 600-hour program. And it gave me a good foundation. And that was 24 years ago. And so it's just been a journey of learning things and spending tens of thousands of dollars an hour studying all kinds of stuff. And I'm kind of driven in all this. So that's kind of my basic story.
Well, okay. So as you were going through medical school, how much root cause investigation, medical detective work were you taught to do?
Well, what happens in your first couple of years, you're taking your science courses, and you learn all the interesting physiology, biochemistry, all that stuff. You get into your later parts of medical school and residency, and basically you're taught how to pigeonhole people.
Mm-hmm.
So you listen to some symptoms, you do a history and physical, and you find out what little ICD-10 code they fit into.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see what little drug box pops down. And so you start with drug number 1. If that doesn't work, you go to drug number 2. And this may sound a little cynical, but it's not too far off. And so, because, the thing that I think a lot of the viewers already know
Mm-hmm.
is, Big Pharma really runs medicine in this country.
Yes.
So the whole teaching and the whole method is to teach doctors how to get to the prescription pad as quickly as possible.
Correct.
So I did that, but I was always, like I said, kind of restless. I'd already started reading Sherri Rogers and a lot of other alternative MDs. And so when the acupuncture course became available, it all just kind of fit.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the local docs in town who'd been doing this much longer than I had invited me to join her. And it's just one thing led to another, and here I am.
And so did you start seeing recoveries where you didn't see before? What was it that was your transformation moment that you felt, okay, I can't ignore this anymore. There's got to be something more that I can do to help my patients. That's why you got into medicine, which is to help people. I heard you say that. So at what point do you realize I'm really not helping until this moment? What was what made that?
I don't know that there was any specific aha, day or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I think, you hear a lot of anecdotes. Like I said, Sherri Rogers, I know the meeting we were at, Lee Cowden was there. And so you listen to some of these docs who've been doing this a long time, and you start to hear some of the stories and some of the results they're getting. And you really want to see that in your patients, because people today they're so sick. They're on 10, 15 drugs. And then we start treating side effects of the drugs with more drugs. And it's really kind of a vicious cycle.
Yes.
So, that's one of the things that, we'll go into a little bit more in terms of, functional medicine and how we really look at different systems and so forth, and how the difference in approach.
Yes. And so I just want to let you know you have lots of fans. Janet is saying hi to you, and Abby, and of course Cheryl, and Chris is also watching today. So send Dr. Grable some love, as you guys always do. So let's talk about functional medicine, because there's people that aren't in the Jacksonville area and perhaps are hearing integrative, functional, complementary, all that. They're hearing it for the first time, although if they've listened to the show since 2011 or just a day or so, we know that we're looking at a natural way to heal. So let's talk about the philosophy of functional medicine and how it was different than what you were taught.
Well, let me give you just a little bit of history, and I'll try to keep this brief.
Perfect.
But I think that one of the questions that most people who have never been exposed to this ask is, if this is so good, why isn't Mayo doing it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, they do now have an alternative medicine department, which I find interesting.
Yes.
But you really have to go back to the mid-1800s. Well, actually, even before that, if you go back 3,500 years to Hippocrates,
Mm-hmm.
he said, let medicine be your food and let food be your medicine. And he couldn't have been more right. Well, in the mid-1800s, actually around 1840, there was a Hungarian doctor named Semmelweis who found that if you washed his hands before he delivered babies, the moms did better.
Yeah.
Well, he tried to convince others to do this because all these patients started flocking to him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the other doctors couldn't believe that they had something on their hands that would cause disease. And they so tortured this guy, he wound up in an insane asylum and actually died from the beatings he took in the insane asylum.
Isn't that amazing?
Well, then we come to 1857, AMA is created as a means to stamp out the original doctors who are homeopaths. So I'll kind of shorten this a little bit. So some key times, the Flexner Report came out around 1911-12. It was a Carnegie Rockefeller report where they said we need much more science and the medicine's too much like the Wild West.
Mm-hmm.
So basically what it was a way to create a stronger pharmaceutical industry and to eventually just weed out all of the holistic physicians. And so they've just gradually tried to do that over the years. And so here we are today with functional medicine.
And so if when you think about it, when the pharmaceutical industry was created, there's always this division. If I don't understand you and you make me feel awkward, or if I want to sell a product that is, maybe the same as yours, but I want to be better, the tendency is to make your product horrible. Like if I'm for a particular party or denomination, I make my party or denomination better than yours by talking bad about yours. And so what happened during that time with these wonderful holistic homeopathic doctors who were making a huge impact, like just washing your hands, and how ridiculed this person had to go through that torture, so that today we wash our hands for just about everything. But we have to go through that process of making the other person that's thinking differently feel like they're a fraud or a quack, and they start talking so bad about this that nobody will even want to look this way. But because of shows like mine and shows like the others that are show out there, we're looking at and considering that there could be a new truth out there. There could be a new way of healing the body. Now, we know in teacher after teacher that if there is a drug out there, chances are there's a natural way that it came from. That drug probably came from some natural form. So let's talk about how it is that these natural forms are made quackery or turned into quackery and made fun of, while drugs are hailed as the most important thing out there.
I think one of the ways to look at this is you'll hear this term evidence-based medicine, which is probably about over the last 5-10 years is the catchphrase for putting down alternative medicine. Because conventional doctors, and by the way, I use medicines all the time. I'm not anti-medicine.
Correct,
I think that's
neither am I.
very important. I think they have their place, but I think we just go to them too quickly.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how they will talk about large randomized trials, and if you haven't proven something by 5,000 patient trials, it has no value. So they just roll their eyes when you talk about anecdotes, examples of people that have had benefits. They don't consider that to have any value. You could take 100 people and give them herb X, and 90 of them get better, and they'd say that's meaningless. That has no meaning. Which most rational people would say, well, that's crazy. There's something going on there.
Yeah.
I find one of the interesting, I don't know if you ever heard of Bernadine Healy.
Yes.
But she used to be very big in the NIH, and she was an editor for the New England Journal of Medicine. And she said after 20 years of reviewing their articles, she said with a heavy heart, well over half of these articles are bunk, between ghostwriters and fudged data. It was truly amazing. It really got the eye of the medical community. So when they're on their lofty perches looking down at alternative doctors, they really need to take a look at themselves and a look at their research and what's going on.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it all boils down to money. I mean, and I think most people get it. When I'm in my office, when I talk to them and start describing some of these things, they just sit there and they just nod. I mean, they get it. It's amazing to me how close-minded so many physicians can be.
That is absolutely. But you talk about science, evidence-based science, but the PubMed.gov is full of alternative and holistic and other that are evidence-based, that all we need to do is research it, and there's evidence. It's just not funded by the FDA or approved by the FDA, or big pharma has the big money behind it. So with that in mind, how do you determine what is anecdotal and what is evidence-based?
Well, the more I I go to lots of conferences. I read tons of books.
Mm-hmm.
I get close to 8 to 10 newsletters. I'm kind of an information junkie, if you will.
Yeah.
And so what I teach my patients is, we're all sort of looking for truth. And I don't care whether it's medicine, politics, or religion. Get a viewpoint from a lot of different angles.
Mm-hmm.
And what'll happen is over time, the truth always, there's a theme that you'll always see that keeps coming up over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where the real truth lies, because you're always going to have these outliers. There was a couple of years back, the CDC did a study on hypertension,
mm-hmm.
and they announced that salt had no impact on blood pressure, which any physician out there knows this is complete nonsense. African Americans and elderly are very salt sensitive. But here was a study that they did, and they just their data and the numbers they crunched. So you can't look at one particular study. So you have to kind of get a feel, experiences from other physicians. If you have an herb that's safe, you might try it. You look at this experience you have yourself and
mm-hmm.
how patients do,
yeah.
and that can give you guidance on whether to use it or not. So you're just constantly trying to refine and improve where you're going.
Okay, so with this, let's talk about some of the reasons why people, is there a theme of your typical patients? Have they tried the traditional conventional medicine and all of a sudden they've decided to just give up and just try something different? Or do you find that people are researching natural, researching allopathic medicine as well, and then making a choice? How do people stumble upon your office, just like they stumble upon my show?
They come from a variety of sources, and most of the patients that come through are either a small percent just want to just get their health refined. They're basically healthy, and they just, they heard about my type of practice and they want to see if they can get feeling better. I see a lot of fatigue. I see some cancer patients. I see Lyme disease. Chronic fatigue is huge today. Everyone is stressed, stress and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going through a really interesting course right now on insomnia, and there's some really fascinating things with that.
Mm-hmm.
Pain. So problems that people have that they go to their conventional doctors and they're not really getting results, or they're just being put on painkillers or just, blood pressure pills.
Yeah.
They're looking for something different. They're looking for more of a natural approach.
And do you think that many of them have exhausted conventional medicine, or are you seeing a trend today of people saying, before I try conventional medicine, let me try something alternative or complementary that will work with my body as opposed to cause too many side effects?
Well, I think social media has had a profound effect on
mm-hmm.
this. People are talking.
Yeah.
And we were talking the other day about vaccines. That'll be a whole
that's a whole show.
Itself. We don't need to go down that path. But people are waking up, and even some docs are, and they're beginning to see that we need to start looking at the biochemistry, the physiology. When somebody's sitting in front of me, I'm trying to figure out what is going on.
Mm-hmm.
What is the problem? And if you go back, a lot of times it's sort of like A leads to B, leads to C, leads to D. They come in with the letter M.
Mm.
And if you can work your way backwards and get back to A, that's usually where a lot of the best chance of getting them well. And I'll tell you, it's amazing how often it goes back to emotion. It really is just amazing.
The first time, that's
how,
right.
How many emotional triggers cause
that's
so
right.
much of the stuff we see.
Yeah. And, we want to work on the body. I've said this so many times. We want to work on the body. We want to take the pill to fix the body. But the reality is, and Dr. Lee Cowden, who, by the way, ACIM conference, Dr. Lee Cowden is the mastermind behind ACIM. And that's how I met Dr. Grable. But here's the thing. He was the first one to articulate it in a way that it just resonated so strong, which was, if we would just deal with the past traumas, if we deal with the spirit or the mind, then the body would start to heal naturally. And so let's talk a little bit about that philosophy. As you sit with your patient, they don't want you to look at their spirit or their mind, or do they? Do they even talk to you about that?
Well, they do. I find it interesting that, and I have to be careful at cocktail parties, because when I'm used to, 10 minutes into a new patient, I'm asking them their most personal questions to kind of, realize there's certain social norms and so forth. But I'll tell you, I had a new patient today, classic example, that she had a history of breast cancer. And I believe if you read Heal Thyself by Peter DeWitt, I know any patients of mine that are listening have probably heard me say this. He and two other physicians argue that cancer starts with emotion.
Yeah.
So I was kind of probing around a little bit, and it turns out that she has two pretty big stressors in her life, her son and her work.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a little bit kind of like one of those helicopter moms, and she's wanting to move all the roadblocks out of her son's way.
Can't do that.
And I try to teach that, things happen for a purpose, and people have, they make their own decisions.
Yeah.
And so I think one thing, in her case, guilt would be a big one. And so helping her to allay her guilt could go a long way to help in her healing.
Yes, yes. So we've got new people joining. Victoria, welcome. She's listening from Missouri. I'm so excited. I want to see, for those of you who are watching, where you're from, where you're watching from. If you're watching from the Jacksonville area, Dr. Grable is in Jacksonville. You can find him at 1504 Roberts Road in Jacksonville, Florida. And the phone number for his clinic is 904-247-7455. Let him know that now that he's a star, that you want to check him out. Now that you've heard about him in the Lillian McDermott radio show, this is something that you're willing to try. Many of us, again, as I said before, many of us try when we don't understand something, we become critical. We become critical because we just don't understand it. But the reality is, if we can take that C, critical, and turn it into a C, curious, now you can say, okay, let me just try that. And it's amazing how many people try the harshest thing that they could try before even trying something as simple as, what's going on in my life that could be causing stress? Right, Dr. Grable? I mean, do you find that we try to, like when we try to overcomplicate things because we're too deeply rooted in the issue?
Sure. It's a lot of it boils down to negative and positive emotion.
Yeah.
And, as they say, everything boils down to love and fear. So most everything is kind of fear-based. But, we have these things that, I teach real simple. I believe that God wants us healthy, happy, and prosperous.
Yes.
Challenges are just school. That's all it is. It's just school.
School.
And if you can learn to just look at things that happen to you and just smile, things work out, and you don't have to get emotionally involved. I don't know if you're familiar with Carolyn Mace, I would imagine.
Yes. Well, I've attended Dr. Mona Lisa Schultz. I've attended her boot camp. She's also a medical intuitive. Yeah.
Yeah. And, she talks about not letting people and circumstances have power over us.
Mm-hmm.
And this can be a little challenging to do, but, you can really I use a little analogy. If somebody comes up and slaps you on the face, you can react in a number of different ways. You can slap them back, punch them in the nose, or you can say, I release it and walk off. And the last one is operating from a position of power. Well, life is full of this stuff. People cut you off in traffic. Your boss rips you a new one. All kinds of things can happen.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to let that get under your skin. You don't have to let that have power over you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but but isn't that easier said than done? So if somebody insults you, our response is to fight back, respond? And for those of you who are watching, or if you want to, are you okay with somebody hitting you in the face and saying, I release you? Or do you want to fight back? Or we've been conditioned to not turn the other cheek. We've been conditioned to take things personal, to be offended. We've been conditioned to create conflict where there is no conflict. We've been conditioned to all of that. So, with that comes, thoughts that we have in our mind of things that we believe are happening that haven't ever happened. Like when you talk about fear versus love, it's interesting. It's Dr. Grable and I sat down, and as well as Chris, his office manager, we sat down and we could have probably talked for 4 hours. And this was supposed to be like a half hour get to know Dr. Grable before making a decision whether or not I wanted to have you as a sponsor. But, isn't it amazing how we're so conditioned? How do you encourage your patients to kind of rewrite those tapes?
We do it by little degrees.
Okay.
I tell them, make it a game. Just have some fun with it. It really, there's two things that I think it boils down to. It boils down to ego and judgment. Mm-hmm. And if you can start working, letting go of ego and judgment, and you can feel it, when someone, for example, in my case, if I have another, like a conventional physician, insult me, I can just feel my ego starting to rise up and wanting to, well, wait just a minute there, pal, and get back and that sort of thing. And that's just ego that's talking. And yes. I think that if we can practice these things, and believe me, I haven't arrived. I tell my patients every day, I don't do everything I'm supposed to do. I struggle with stuff all the time. But it's amazing how if you just practice with little things, it starts getting easier and easier. And when you feel that sense of empowerment, where you realize that these things don't have to have control over you, it's very freeing.
Okay. So thank you so much, Victoria, for sharing this. She says that she takes things personal, but instead she withdraws. So let's talk about these personalities. Now that I know that you've studied the work of Caroline Mace, or
right.
Okay.
Right.
That when somebody holds things in, what kind of diseases do you see when people are holding things in and not releasing them?
Well, depression is a classic one.
Okay.
There's an old adage that depression's anger turned inwards. Mm-hmm. And, the Italian folks have got it right. They get stuff off their chest. They're always waving their hands and they get all excited. But then they let go.
It's done.
And they don't hold on to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's very healthy. I would mention there's a great book, if the listeners haven't read this. It's called The Four Agreements. I don't know if you've read this one.
Yeah.
And the Four Agreements, an ancient Toltec wisdom. It goes back, thousands of years. And the Four Agreements are: be impeccable with your word, always do your best, mm-hmm. don't make assumptions, mm-hmm. and don't take anything personally.
Correct.
It's amazing how if you do those four things, how you're at peace. I think, in my opinion, I think that's the crux of the Bible, really.
Exactly.
Because, not making assumptions, that's judgment. So if you're not judging people and judging situations and others, that's very freeing.
Yeah.
So in that, Victoria, that you mentioned, the personally, one of the things I would inquire with a patient like that is try to get a sense of their self-worth. So I'll look at people and see, how do you feel about yourself? Usually people, they kind of get in there, maybe the eyes look down and that kind of stuff. So at that point, I'll try to give them a little pep talk and tell them that, good goal is to be able to look in the mirror, give yourself a big kiss and feel comfortable. And it's amazing how many people, when you say that, they just kind of start squirming because they really don't have that deep inner sense of self-worth they need to work on.
Interesting. So you're suggesting that they look at themselves in the mirror and give themselves a kiss, like get up to the mirror, or just blow themselves a kiss?
They should be able to get to a point where they can do that. I don't sit and kiss the mirror every day, but it's, it's that idea that we look and accept ourselves for who we are, and we're at peace with who we are. And So when you do that and you have a good self-image and self-worth, other people who are critical, it kind of bounces off you. I mean, it really doesn't. I heard an interesting thing. I'm a little older than maybe some of the viewers, but an interesting little thing that says, at age 20, we worry so much about what other people are thinking. At age 40, we don't care what other people are thinking. And at age 60, we realize that others weren't thinking about us. And I just find it interesting that, yeah. So it's a lot of this stuff is just stuff we make up in our head.
That's all. Yeah.
All these assumptions and stories and nonsense. And anyway, so.
Absolutely. The stories in our head. So I think you have a lot of people pretty much saying, yes, they agree with this. Okay. So let's talk about, and before I ask you about what different services that you offer at Complementary Care Center, I want to encourage all of you to spread the word, because Dr. Steve Grable has stepped up and said, I believe in what we're doing here. I believe in learning this new truth that we're talking about, that our bodies were created perfectly to heal. And so I would love for you guys to share this video with everybody you know, especially if they're in the Jacksonville and surrounding areas, or even further away. People drive a long way to go see a doctor that will listen. So basically, I want to encourage you to also, because you want to know when Dr. Grable is going to be on the show next, you need to become a subscriber, because we're no longer going to be, this is where you're going to find Dr. Grable. You're going to find him here on the Lillian McDermott Radio Show /classroom, where we always learn and grow together. So please subscribe at whenyouneedafriend.com. Also, I want you to subscribe, follow, and like me on the Facebook page. That way you'll know who's on, and you can join this classroom and start that process of being able to love yourself. We've been told that if we think of ourselves first, somehow we're selfish. The reality is we need to take care of ourselves so we can give from a place of abundance. And that's where we shift. It's a shift that we learn about how to love ourselves first, so that we can love each other with a true flowing of abundance. And so I want to encourage you to not only subscribe to the YouTube channel, just when you're at whenyouneedafriend.com, check out my sponsors as well, because without my sponsors, this show would not happen. And so there's so many ways to stay connected. Like when you're watching the video, whether it's on YouTube or listening on podcasts at iTunes, Play Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn, those are the choices that you have. There's so many choices. And you can also call and text me. When you call me during the show, I cannot answer. But if you text me or call me at 407-373-5959, now you will be able to have a conversation when I'm available. So let's continue this movement of taking 100% responsibility, which is to learn this new truth and how we can love our bodies. And so I also want to encourage you that if you want to learn more about Dr. Grable, you can go to drgrable.com. That's DRGRABLE. And if you were a subscriber to whenyouneedafriend.com, you would have all of his contact information already. So, and you can call him. Just let him know you heard of him on the show, or you watched him on YouTube, and that's 904-247-7455. So I wanted to stop and thank Dr. Grable for becoming a sponsor of the show. He's one of those sponsors I talk about that we need to support. And so let's talk about Dr. Grable, about when people do go, what to expect. Let's talk about your services. What are some of the services that you offer at Complementary Care Center?
Well, basically what happens when people contact us, we get all their contact information. We send them a form to fill out, which I go over very carefully. I spend a good 20, 30 minutes doing that, which gives me a really nice overview of their health. Mm-hmm. So when they come in, I don't have to sit there and just fire questions at them. And I already have quite a bit of background. So then I try to get a feel for where are the general areas that they're struggling with. When I started this journey 24 years ago, I used to do a lot of organic acid tests and spit tests and stool tests. They're okay, but you can run up a $2,000 bill, and the amount of useful clinical information sort of, eh. So about 18 years ago, I got into something called electrodermal screening. And, we can go in a little more depth to that. I know I don't want to take up too much time with this, but basically it's sort of like a biofeedback device. Mm-hmm. And what this can really do, it runs about 5,000 tests. And so it can give me a phenomenal amount of information. Mm-hmm. So we offer in the office IV therapy. Mm-hmm. So we do
which
IV
I'm
chelation.
Excited about, because IV therapy has had a lot of quackery attached to it, and a lot of but what is IV therapy, and why would somebody choose IV therapy?
Well, let me share something interesting. This is fairly new. We've been doing IV vitamin C for 20 years.
Yes, I know.
And there's a pulmonologist who is getting tired of losing his septic patients in the ICU. So he started using high-dose vitamin C, steroids, and thiamine. And he's having a 50% salvage rate. Wow. And there are now 500 institutions studying this. So I'm like, yay, they're finally getting it. So you can treat a lot of infectious diseases and things like that. It can really help with vitamin C. Chelation can help with circulation, get rid of heavy metals. They have a thing called a Myers IV. So we got several different IVs that we can use. We do PEMF, which is pulsed electromagnetic frequency.
Yes, I love that.
Great for a whole host of things. We have an alpha machine. This is a sort of, I'd be careful how I say it. It's not really a diagnostic. Let's say it's an information tool. How about that? Mm-hmm. What it is you measure temperature at over 100 different acupuncture points. And it gives you a lot of information about your sinuses, teeth, breasts, all your internal organs. And the Germans found it's about 20% more sensitive than mammogram in picking up problems. So that's a great tool. We have due to frequency-specific microcurrent. And so that uses frequencies. And I didn't mention to you, Lily, but I just got my new Rife machine in today.
No way. You actually have a Rife machine?
I have it sitting right next to me here. Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm really excited.
Are you all hooked up? Are you hooked up to the machine right now while you're doing the show?
No. I haven't even had a chance. It just came this afternoon. I haven't even opened it. I just opened it up. Like, oh, there's my machine, So
I thought the Rife machine, they made the Rife machine, Dr. Grable, illegal at one point. Did I make that up, or is that something?
Well, what's interesting, just real briefly, I'm sure you know the story of Royal Rife. And for the folks listening who don't know this guy, I think this is probably the greatest travesty in medicine. This was a brilliant microscopist and microbiologist in the 30s who found through painstaking work that he could cure cancer with frequencies. Mm-hmm. And there's a news clipping that you can still find online where 20 or 30 of the top physicians from around the country signed their name to a document saying, we have a cure for infectious disease and cancer. Well, Fishbein from the AMA tried to buy him out. When Rife wouldn't sell to him, Fishbein went back to Chicago and began a 9-year attack in the courts against this guy. Yeah. At the end, Rife won, but he was penniless, alcoholic, broken man, died soon thereafter. And the feds went around destroying all his stuff. It is truly
well, amazing. if they're gonna attack this man for washing his hands. Can you imagine what they're going to do to someone who comes up with a frequency machine that, So with that, let's talk about frequency and how frequency works with the body.
Well, I think to understand this stuff, and if there are any conventional docs listening to this, I'm sure they're rolling their eyes right now, but you have to look at quantum physics. And one of the problems is we are stuck in Newtonian physics, meaning that we think of things as physical. And I actually learned from Lee Cowden that the quantum physicists have discovered the theatron, which is the smallest particle. It's the God particle, if you will. Mm-hmm. And it's a wave. So they've now proven that everything is energy. So everything around us, this keyboard and computer, it's all energy. So when you start thinking in those terms, then frequencies, which is energy, starts to make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Another good way to think about it, remember Ella Fitzgerald, the Memorex commercial?
Mm-hmm.
And just sing the note and the glass would shatter, if you remember those
Yeah.
old commercials. Well, there was a resonance that occurred with that glass, and it would shatter.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get the right resonant frequencies, you can really stimulate healing. And it's extremely safe. That's one of the beauties. You just can't patent and sell it at a drugstore.
Yeah. Money talks, doesn't it? And
Money talks.
I just want to acknowledge Cheryl and Mike Teague, who said that the Rife cured his non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Isn't that amazing? But there's nobody reporting on this. Nobody is reporting on this. And anybody who's hearing this for the first time, I'm sure that if I were to search for Rife machine in PubMed.gov, there would be some evidence-based science. You know, we think of all anecdotal, and then that the allopathic community has all the science. That's not true. I mean, we're just learning. We're just dipping our toe in Ayurveda and the circadian clock. We're just dipping our toe in this, but it's been around for 5,000 years. Nobody's reporting on it. What is going on? And not only that, but our phones, our computers, everything that we own is altering our frequency. So would you like to share anything about that? Because I see you nodding your head.
Well, that's a really big thing, is electromagnetic frequencies. I don't know if you know, Jacksonville, I just learned, was a test area for 5G cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been here before probably most of the other cities. But we are swimming in a sea of EMF. And I'll tell you a quick anecdote you'll appreciate.
Yeah.
Lee Cowden had a couple, husband and wife, who both came down with cancers, different cancers at the same time. And the chance of that is astronomically small. Mm-hmm. Well, in his investigation, he found out that their bedroom looked like an electronics store. They had everything you can imagine. So he got that all out of there, got it cleaned up, and their cancers went away. And so a couple basic things, this thing, don't ever hold this up to your head unless you want brain cancer.
Yeah.
And I know that the cell phone people have supposedly done studies disproving that. I think it's all bunk.
They need to have independent studies, not if I'm doing a study on my own product, I'm going to say it's wonderful, but we need to have a third party that's not bought.
Yeah. I have a 30-year-old who developed breast cancer right where she kept it in her bra.
That's happening more and more.
So, you want to use like the air tubes like you use
yep.
But one thing I started doing a couple months ago is shutting off the breaker to my bedroom at night.
Yeah.
And it's very simple. I just get ready to hop into bed. I just flip the breaker box, pull the plug on the router.
A breaker box in your bedroom. It's the thing that's okay. That is okay. Everybody just stop the presses here. That is like, that is so clever, so easy to do. But you know what? I've been banging my head trying to figure out how to turn off the router, and you can't turn off the router without turning off certain things. But turning off the breaker in your bedroom, brilliant. That was worth the price of admission right there. So thank you so much for that. So that would eliminate all this frequency in your bed where you spend 8 hours at least.
Right. Because see, there's power lines in the walls. And so people say, well, I don't have any, my TV's off and all this kind of thing, but you're still swimming in a sea of this stuff. And if you could see in the electromagnetic spectrum, we're being bombarded with this stuff all the time. So I think the more we can cut down on this, I think the better that's going to help our sleep and help our energy and help us feel better.
Okay. So electromagnetic frequency, we had Lloyd Burrell. I've reached out to Smart and Safe, or Safe and Smart. I'm trying to remember right now, but they are giving us all these different air tubes, which if you pinch, you see, I don't know if you can see this, for those of you who are watching, you can press it, where the ones that come on your phone have a metal piece, and it will, even if you have it in your phone and it's away from your ear, that piece of metal transfers that frequency to your ear. So we're going to be giving away that. We're going to be giving away reverse osmosis, zero installation, we're going to be giving away so many things. So I want you to make sure that you guys subscribe, tune in, share, so that we can get more sponsors to give away things on the show. And I'm looking forward to giving all this stuff away. So let's talk about costs and expectations. What should a person that's going to go see you, a patient that wants to give you a try, what should they expect?
Okay. Well, we charge $250 for a new patient visit. That's 45 minutes, but that also includes a half hour more of my time before I even see them. And I spent a lot of time outside of the office visit analyzing data and looking at their record and so forth. A lot of the docs that do what I do charge anywhere from $350 to $950 for the same amount of time. And I think that's a little exorbitant. So I try not to do that. My revisits are $75 for 15 minutes, $150 for half an hour. And some patients do the ACIM, some don't. I kind of leave that up to them.
Uh-huh.
But normally, most people, if they came in and they did the initial visit and they came back, we have found with the ACIM, it usually takes 3 to 12 sessions to get people balanced. So usually after about 3 sessions, most people have noticed a pretty significant improvement. And we can kind of space things out from there. And I like to see my patients at least twice a year for a brief visit. I think that's a bare minimum. If you're really interested in getting well and staying well, that would be good. And I have one of the perks I offer is we have a portal through our CHARM EHR system. And so I communicate with people every day, and I clean up my message board every morning. People ask me questions. They might find an interesting article they want me to read, or report a problem or anything.
Mm-hmm.
They're welcome to contact me. And of course, we can't get into office visits over email, but it's, I try to be available for them.
Okay.
So I think we try very hard to be economical and affordable for folks.
Very good. Very good. So Steve has a question for you. So thank you, Steve, for this question. Steve wants you to recommend a safe, comprehensive detox that includes mobilization and excretion without retoxing and potentially getting sicker, which happened to me. I got sick in a detox.
Well, detox is a big subject, and we only have a couple minutes left.
And by the way, Dr. Grable is going to be coming on once a month. Doctor will be in. He'll be making a class call, and he will be able to. We will take topics. So write down the topics you want to hear as well. So go ahead, Dr. Grable. I didn't mean to.
What I would say to Steve is go online and get Sherri Rogers, Rogers, her book Detoxify or Die. It's a little melodramatic, but she's a very brilliant MD, IQ of 160. She writes these for lay people. Everything's referenced. You'll get just a wealth, and you could probably find it for $3 or $4. It's just amazing. She has a book called EI Syndrome. It's this thick, packed with information. $1.83. So if you just know where to look,
EI Syndrome?
Environmental illness syndrome. So like for people that are allergic, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a terrific read. And so she was, I mentioned that AAEM earlier, and she's big on that. So
okay, well, I tell you what, we're going to continue our conversation just because the music is on, and we're going to be saying goodbye. We're going to continue for a little bit with Dr. Grable, but I want to thank you, Dr. Grable, for being part of the show today, and we're going to continue. So please contact him at 904-247-7455. Thank you so much. And for those of you that are watching or listening on in podcast or on YouTube later on, please remember you're in choice. You're always in choice. This is Lillian McDermott wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever.
The Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.
Okay, I'm loving all the hearts. I'm loving all the love. So so we're doing things a little bit different now. And so we're not taking any breaks, but we are breaking from time to time. And now that the show is done, we're going to now, if you have any questions for Dr. Grable, let's see. So were you able to answer? Because the music came on without me even seeing that it was coming on. I'm so sorry. Because Robert does a really good job at telling us what's happening. So were you able to finish? Were you able to finish the with Steve's question?
Yes, because I think it's to get a detox. One other thing that I would say, and I don't know, are you having to type or can they hear what I'm saying?
Yes, they're still they can hear what you're saying.
Okay.
They're still on.
It's just not on audio or video.
Yeah, we're still on video.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things, if you can do, I've got a 9-day liver cleanse, which I don't have
a 9-day
the
liver
ability
cleanse?
to really go into that in detail right now. But basically, it's a very, very low fat. It's a vegetable type diet for about 9 days. And what it does is when you lower your fat consumption, this frees up your liver to do its 2,000 functions. And this is one of the issues I have with some of the paleo keto folks. I know this is very popular. I've read Miriam Kalamium's stuff, and I'm very familiar with that. But that really puts a bit of a burden on the liver. And of course, our liver is our main detox organ. So I think that eating, for example, out of apples, asparagus, 16 ounces of fresh squeezed celery juice in the morning is very helpful. Those kind of things can really help you to start feeling better.
Interesting. And so do you feel that a detox is necessary? Because some people say that the body automatically detoxes.
If you just start eating cleaner food, your body will start to detox.
Okay.
The best way to detox is to fast. But, a lot of people get headaches and they feel really lousy and it's kind of tough to do. But that's the ultimate detox, really.
Is fasting. And are you talking about intermittent fasting or fasting for just water fasting? What kind of fasting?
Well, there's all different kinds. Intermittent fasting you mentioned is people who eat typically from noon to 6 p.m. and then not eat the rest of the time. And that gives your gut a chance to rest. Some people will fast for 24 to 48 hours. I've had patients fast 2 and 3 weeks. Now you have to be careful if you're elderly or frail or sickly, you want to use good judgment.
Yes.
Always listen to your body. And speaking of that, and I tell this to my patients all the time, is your body processes over 200,000 bits per second. So if you start listening and paying attention, if you're on the wrong track, it'll start giving you tips and clues and so forth.
Yes, that is absolutely true. Okay, what about coffee enemas? Cheryl wants to know.
They're fine. Of course, that was William Kelly, treated 30,000 cancer patients, and that was one of his big treatments for that. It's really not particularly necessary. If you're getting your liver working better, then you should be fine. I'm fine with coffee enemas. Nick Gonzalez up in New York, cancer oncology guy. He had patients, somebody's doing 3, 4, 5 a day. And so it really helped to stimulate the liver and help them to detox. So I think if people, want to do that, that's fine. I always recommend to cool the coffee first. But it's really, it's probably a little bit more than what you have to do to get yourself well.
Yes. And Steve, you're right. Lowering your caloric intake. And when you look at foods that are high in nutrient and micronutrients, chances are they're going to be low in caloric value. So it's right. Amazing how nature was created perfectly. Our bodies were created perfectly. And if we give it what it needs, it will return to that. Have you seen that time and time again, Dr. Grable?
Oh, sure. Yeah. It's amazing. My patients that just start eating more vegetables, I teach very simply, eat fruit, greens, and veggies. And if you're craving meat, have some meat. Just make sure it's clean. And, some nuts and seeds and whatnot. But again, even your good fats tend to require a little more processing for your liver.
Okay.
So the more we can try to evolve into a more vegan type diet, I think for vegan, the best, the better off we are.
Yes. Okay. And so Eddie, thank you, and thank you, Steve, for your questions. Then Eddie wants to know about activated charcoal and how does it work and how much? How much does it work?
Well, activated charcoal has what's called a high surface area. In other words, it has lots of little binding sites that can bind toxins to the charcoal. And I'm fine with that. You'll have some black stool, dosing, a couple of teaspoons.
What
It's
about
not
pills?
one that I necessarily,
Yeah.
or a couple of pills. Yeah, you don't have to overdo it with that. One thing I would caution people: diatomaceous earth has become popular, and I would strongly recommend avoiding that because it just tends to gunk up your intestinal tract. But if you do even just more fiber, when you start increasing your fibrous fruits and vegetables, that's gonna clean you out just fine.
Very
Take
good.
eat a half a watermelon.
Eat a half a watermelon. Yum.
Eat a half a water. It's yummy. I guarantee you'll have a wonderful experience with that, and it tastes good. Tastes a lot better than activated charcoal. So I can't remember the last time I ever used charcoal. So
I did a show with David Avocado Wolf, and I called him David Wolf, and I got so much slack for that. But David Avocado Wolf was recommending charcoal, and I ran out and I got some charcoal, and I never opened it. Something just told me not to open it and not to use it. It is amazing how the body or so things happen, and it really is no accident. It happens the way it needs to happen. And so you're saying that if I just have watermelon, that works just as good as activated charcoal?
Well, it depends on what you're trying. I mean, obviously, if you've had an acute toxin exposure and you have to we use activated charcoal in the hospital, in the ER, people come in poisoned or something like that. But in general, your body will naturally heal itself if you just get rid of a lot of the junk. I mean, the foods that we eat, a lot of the high fats. So even lean meat's high in fat. A lot of people don't realize that. So the more, again, you can get your liver to work, get things healed up. I promote, I don't know if you're familiar with Restore.
Yes. Zach Bush is going to be on the show. Yeah.
Oh, terrific. Yeah. So he'll talk more about that, but it's a mineral blend that can help with healing the intestinal tract.
Yeah.
So I've had good success with that.
Very good. Very good. Okay. So I know that we've gone a little bit over, but it's always nice to have a little treat with just us, talking. But Dr. Grable is going to be on the show every month from this point on, and we'll have a topic every time. And hopefully you will be able to join us, ask your questions ahead of time, or ask your questions during the show, whichever way you'd like. Dr. Grable is an expert. He's our teacher. And so he'll be able to help us along the way. And so for those of you who live in the Jacksonville area or want to go to the Jacksonville area to see Dr. Grable, the number again is 904-247-7455. And again, if you were a subscriber, you would have all his contact information. So I want to encourage you to become a subscriber. And I love all the love that we're getting, Dr. Grable. I don't know if you can see this, but I'm on Facebook Live at Lillian's radio show, and I'm loving all the love. So here's the way you can help us out, is by liking this video, sharing this video, sharing the website, and let's get, Dr. Grable has a Facebook page too. So I want to encourage all of you to go to Dr. Grable's Facebook page. And it's Dr. Grable, it's actually Complementary Care Center. And you'll see Dr. Grable's picture there. So like it, tell everybody to like it. Let's support doctors that think outside the box. It is time. It is time that we start taking our health back and stop being ruled by our insurance. You don't accept insurance, right, Dr. Grable?
That's correct. But I will say that many insurance, unless you have an HMO, usually you should get some reimbursement. Mm-hmm. I mean, even Medicare, we've had patients get 75% back on their bill. So.
Yeah, because just because you don't accept it doesn't mean that they can't submit the bill. You give it to them so that they can submit it themselves. Is there anything else that you would like to add before we go today? Now you've got all these adoring fans, and you probably had them before the show.
I hope I don't know if I have communicated effectively functional medicine, but it's really, like I said, it's listening to systems and trying to work backwards to where getting really to the root of where things started. Because if you do that, that's how you really can get healed and get well.
Yeah. And I
And
want to,
unfortunately, docs today, 7 minutes, standing in the doorway, that's just not going to get it done.
yeah. Yeah. And, many of us want to deal with the physical body, but, doctors have come on my show saying that 99% of all illness is due to past trauma. It's due to not being able to release something in our past, anger, resentment, fear. All these emotions play such an important role in our body. And if we were just to work spirit, mind, and body, we wouldn't. I know that we need doctors to patch us up and we need doctors to help us get better. But to be able to go to a doctor that treats the whole body, now that is priceless. Thank you, Dr. Grable, for being a part of the show. Thank you for becoming a partner, not just want to be on the show, but partnering with me and being able to think outside the box so that you can help people heal by root cause. Now, do you do Skype, or do you do any office visits over the internet, or do they have to come see you?
I've not gone down that road yet. I'm open to that.
Okay.
I'll do phone consults with established patients.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if somebody lived in California and they wanted 45 minutes of my time to pick my brain,
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with that. But I really get a lot out of being with people.
Yeah.
When you're in that space,
You get their energy.
because you're really perceiving their energy, and you're getting a lot of information, body language, that kind of thing, that you can't get from just a telephone conversation.
Yes.
So I really think it's worth, at least trying to sit down, at least initially, to get to know each other a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. That's wonderful. And so I want to remind everybody again, go to whenyouneedafriend.com, check out my sponsors, whether they're offline or online. We have them there. Just click on them, figure out different ways that you can support them. And also, I want Dr. Grable's phone to be ringing off the hook tomorrow, because of he's stepping out of the box, and he is here to help all of us. And so, Dr. Grable, thank you so much for being a part of the show today. And everybody's saying they're looking forward to seeing you next time. And so am I.
Great.
So we're going to say goodbye to all of you on Facebook. And please share and like us and follow us, both Dr. Grable's Facebook as well as mine. And share this video, for those of you who are YouTube, with all your friends. Take care. Bye. Here we go. Let me say goodbye. And all the love is still coming, Dr. Grable. It's amazing.